Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? You will forgive me if I'm a little demob happy today. Last day for a week. Let me just turn things off. There we are. We don't need my name on the screen. Jim Turner has just arrived. Morning, Jim. Jim, can you do me a small favour? Can you confirm that you can actually hear me? I had a bit of an issue with the sound this morning, and I just want to make sure that we are broadcasting loud and clear. I can see my levels. My levels are broadcasting sound, but I would like to make sure that people can actually hear me. While we're waiting for Jim to do that, my hat. Under normal circumstances, my hat selection for these shows is either completely random or it's basically the first one I get hold of. Let's have a look. Mark Whiting has just arrived, by the way. Chris Ford is here as well. Love the smell of burnt toast in the morning. Isn't that a sign of a heart attack? Isn't that one of the if you can smell burnt toast, that's a sign of an incoming heart attack? If somebody can confirm they can hear me, that would be a big, big help. Yes, the hat today, not chosen at random, chosen for a very specific reason, because we do have an article coming through or coming up later in the show. And thank you very much indeed, Chris. Apparently I'm coming through nice and clear, which is excellent news. Yes, it's a bit of a political show today. Didn't plan it that way, but you know, that's the way the world moves, and we are here to respond to that. So yes, the hat, I think the hat demonstrates my allegiance to one side of an argument that's brewing over in America, and our morning monologue is very much in the same kind of way. Dan Cullen's just joined us as well. Morning, Dan. Good of you to join us. So we haven't quite got a full contingent, but we've got a pretty good quorum of people, I would say. And Jim Turner. Jim Turner, he's part of a convoy apparently, coming through loud and clear. 10-4, good buddy. Yeah, did anyone have a CB radio back in the day? Did they? I had one in my bedroom for a while. And with hindsight, I don't know why. It was either me speaking to somebody that lived next door or speaking to completely random strangers. Chris Ford says the burnt toast smell is not a heart attack. The Arga is a bit fierce. I've always quite fancied owning an Arga, but is it not a bit warm in this weather? I don't know. I've never cohabited with an Arga, but yeah, let us know. Anyway, people, it is, as I say, it's quite a political show today, and it's quite a long show as well. So I hope you've got plenty of time. I hope there's nowhere you've got to be because there's a lot to get through. So let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Yeah, Dan Cullen has just said he used to have CB radios in his cars so that he knew where the cops were. Yeah, they would have served that purpose. As I say, I was about 13 at the time. Cars weren't really a concern. I was sat in my bedroom doing Breaker 19. Never did work out what Breaker 19 meant, but that's what we did. Nigel Williams has just joined us. Morning, Nigel. Had an Amstrad 901 with a Roger bleep on it. Still got a Midland set in my cupboard to go on the van at some point. They are still in use, are they? Who knew? And Dan says, and used to have in machines as well when out in the country, used to talk to people a lot. See, that would be quite nice. I mean, I guess you could do that now, sort of, with modern technology. I tell you one thing I am starting to believe, and I'm going to make a prediction here based on purely gut feel. Anybody using AI like ChatGPT and stuff where you're talking to it, I reckon within the next couple of years we will all be wearing, well, I say we all, most of us will be wearing wearables, something around your neck, something on your wrist, something in your ear, so that you are literally walking along and walking and talking to your device, asking it questions, getting information, news updates and things. I think that's the way we're headed. That's what I reckon anyway. If you've got any thoughts on that, let me know. Ken Hatter has just arrived as well. And Ken has got a full set of sunshine down in Welsh, Wales. Congratulations to you, Ken. Still a bit overcast here. It was raining first thing this morning. I know Fred's planning to play golf later today. It's going to be a bit soggy wherever he goes, I think. Dan says, I remember I had a van because all metal used to get 14 to 20 mile coverage. Yeah, I bet. Anyway, it is. What is it? It is Friday. I'm just making sure I did the question today. Sorry. It is Friday, the 6th of June, my last day for a week. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's weirdly political show, we're making a strong case down under. We're saving time with a JCB backhoe loader, the sustainability of remanufacturing mining equipment, and orange versus green and yellow, Donald Trump's war against John Deere, plus, which kind of goes along the same sort of line, why I stand with the global construction brotherhood. No mystery machine today because I still haven't nailed down exactly how to make it work. But what I can do is I can remind you of the question of the day. Dan, go back to CB radios. It was said 6 mile radius of a regular one. That's quite a boost. Still have a few CBs, and there's one in the 3CX, but I've never used it, says Jim. Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe the WhatsApp group is just a bit too complicated. Maybe we all need a CB radio, and we just sit here and chew the fat. Pretend I didn't say that. If I cut out, have a safe journey, and have a ball in Italy, Dan, I will certainly try. I'm surrounded by things on charge at the moment. Cameras and audio gear and phones and drone. I am currently draining the grid single-handed, so I'm ready to go to Italy on Sunday. There will be no shows next week, but if you are watching, certainly on Instagram, I will be doing updates over there if I possibly can, assuming I can find some sort of signal. Anyway, before we crack on with the show, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day, which is this. Now, I've chosen this one for a very specific reason because I was reminded yesterday of something I witnessed probably 7-8 years ago. The question of the day today is, what is the strangest thing you've ever seen anyone bring in their packed lunch? Okay. Now, obviously, I mean, I'm sure most of you are going for food items, assuming you can come up with something. I'm going for something slightly different. I was on site with a Midlands-based demolition company, and there had been something of a, I wouldn't say it was heated, but there'd been a bit of a toing and froing between a couple of members of the team, because it turns out that one of the guys was eating the other guy's sandwiches. And this wasn't a one-off. This was fairly regular. They had a site cabin there. Everyone would go in there, bung their packed lunch boxes in a fridge. Come lunchtime, they'd go in there and help, have their lunch and then get back to work. It turns out one guy was eating somebody else's sandwiches. So the victim of this crime decided, I'm going to get my own back. So he went to the local butcher and he got himself 4 pig's testicles straight off the pig. Big suckers like this. Put them in this like Tupperware container and stuck them in the fridge and left them for the guy to find. Yeah, imagine being presented with that. I'm feeling quite peckish now. It must be lunchtime. What have I got? Oh, 4 pig's bollocks. Anybody got anything to beat that? I'd love to hear from you. See, there you are. Question today: a pig's tongue. What is it with pigs? Somebody brought a pig's tongue. Now, I mean, I've eaten tongue, quite like tongue, don't have a problem, but a whole pig's tongue? Some pig's tongue? Could you tell it was a pig's tongue? I think we need more information. Nigel Williams says, Elon Musk is developing the neural net for this exact reason. Well, that's assuming he's not extradited by Mr. Trump, who they've now have had a falling out. It'll be an implant in your brain, and you'll wear glasses and lenses with an augmented reality screen, self-charging off your own body's electrical current. Okay, I think that's a step too far, and I think it's particularly a step too far, bearing in mind Elon Musk's somewhat sketchy track record for sending rockets into space and bringing them back. I know when he pulls it off, it's an absolute marvel. but a lot of them crash and burn. I'm not sure I really want Elon Musk or any of his cohorts fiddling around in what little remains of my brain. But as I say, I do genuinely think, I mean, I tend to wear one AirPod fairly regularly, mainly for listening to podcasts and stuff like that. Because if I've got one in, I can still hear what people are saying. But I reckon give it a little bit longer, and I reckon I'll be walking around like that pretty much the entire time, just chatting away to my phone. And the nice thing about that is it just appears like you're on the phone. Nobody knows you're talking to a machine or an AI. You're just chatting away to your phone. I think that's perfectly acceptable behavior. Anywho, let's take that away because we do have the first video of today. We're going down to Australia is where we're going, and we're going there in the company of Case.
Yeah, g'day, Matt Allen here from SA Tractors. We're out here in beautiful Gulgul in the Sunraysia area at KW Earth Moving. Got a few of his machines here to have a look at. Now, KW Earth Moving, Kane and Louise have been loyal Case and SA Tractors customers for over 15 years, bought and sold many Case machines. Look, I don't think there's a model or a type of Case machine that they've made that Kane hasn't had. We understand the machinery needs to keep running and time is money, and you know the power and the support that they get from the Case brand and SA Tractors goes a long way to making sure they're a Case customer well into the future. KW Earth Moving over the years has bought many models of machines, you know, everything up from little 1.7 tonne excavators to, you know, recently they purchased a Case CX490C, which is the largest Case excavator that we bring into Australia, and basically everything in between. The relationship with KW Earth Moving, you know, and they keep coming back is because, you know, we keep offering the support and the machinery keeps on producing the results that they need to keep their business and their customers happy.
So I'm Kane Whitworth from KW Earth Moving and Concreting. So I bought my first Case skid steer back in 2008. I've kept purchasing Case because I've had such a good run with them. All the Case gear is, look, I find it all to be exceptional in performance and fuel efficiency. Yeah, everything that we do with it certainly outperforms the job that we're certainly using them for. Don't have any problems, or they're definitely not underperforming in any part of any job that we do. I recommend Case equipment to pretty much everybody. As I said, it certainly performs to everything we need. It's well priced to buy new. Service is all very economical. Fuel efficiency is very good on any sort of job, whether it's a hard job or an easy job.
He actually started the video with "G'day." It's like they play to the stereotype, isn't it? Chris Ford, now going back to strangest things you've seen in a packed lunch. The man would eat anything. Black chicken, which is basically chicken that was about to go off and then it was cooked until it was black. I eat quite a lot of chicken. I don't actually eat red meat anymore. I eat quite a lot of chicken, but I'm terrified of chicken. I really am. To the point where try not to eat it off a barbecue, just in case there is a squiffy bit and I end up ill. If anybody's, I mean, I've got a pretty strong stomach. I'll eat anything. But if I'm eating a piece of chicken and somebody says, "Is this chicken okay?" That's me done. I'm out. I can't bring myself to eat chicken that has got a question mark against it. But apparently this guy also ate squirrel, aka tree rat. I have never eaten squirrel. I have eaten snake. I've eaten alligator. I've eaten crocodile. I've eaten ostrich. I've eaten some weird shit, but I've never eaten squirrel. What is squirrel like? I can't imagine squirrel having a whole bunch of meat on it. Feels like it's going to be a lot like hard work. That a good friend of mine travelled to Peru many moons ago, and was invited to stay with a family in literally, you know, a hut. And because she was the guest of honour, she was offered the biggest piece of that night's dinner, guinea pig. Yeah, and she did her level best to hand it back, but apparently that's considered rude. So she had the guinea pig. Good morning to Action Demolition, who have just joined us over on Instagram. Let me get that out of the way. If anybody's got any more weird and wonderful things out of somebody's lunchbox, I'd love to hear from you. Back after this with saving time with JCB's backhoe loaders.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I'm deliberately saving the politics for the end of the show. So between now and then, let's have a look at how you save time with a JCB backhoe loader.
With groundworking, time is everything. We're here with our customers, showing them how they can save time with our innovative features. In this 3CX, we have electro-hydraulic controls, which allows you to debog the machine using the front and back end simultaneously. With this 4CX, we're showing you the dual drive system. This saves you time spinning in the seat, allowing you to drive the machine facing the rear end. Finally, our Leica system, giving you accurate grading by optimizing the front shovel, giving you a level grade down to 10 millimeters.
Now, I'm fairly sure that was shot at their recent Groundworkers Day. Was anyone that's actually watching the show there? I think Ken went along. Did Chris go along as well? Did anyone spot themselves in that video? Love to hear from you. We're going to be looking at remanufactured parts for the mining industry with Caterpillar immediately after a smidgen of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
See, you live and learn about your audience, don't you? Garvin over at Mostly Diggers on Instagram has just said he lived in Ecuador for a few years and guinea pig is common to eat. It's miserably small, though, and way more expensive than chicken. Never tried it for that reason alone. It's more expensive than chicken. I thought this was a kind of a necessity thing. I thought it was chicken would be too expensive or not available at all, so therefore we're eating the guinea pig. Apparently a bit of a delicacy. Speaking of which, why? I know we've got some sort of farmy types in, Jim and possibly Chris as well. Why do we eat so little rabbit here in the UK? I know we had the whole myxomatosis thing back in the day, but we have rabbits running wild and they're delicious. Why are we not eating them? If those in Ecuador and Peru can eat guinea pig, why aren't we eating the rabbits? Let's have a look. Question of the day. I remember there was a guy who used to drink another man's Lucozade regularly, so he got fed up and pissed in the bottle, mixed some Lucozade to give it a taste, and the guy drank it without noticing. Yum. The follow-on, though, he ran to the toilet to throw up, never drunk Lucozade since. No, I bet. Nigel Williams says, question of the day. I've seen a number of things over the years. The one that stands out was a labourer who picked up the wrong box in the fridge and brought his son's school pack lunch, teddy bear luncheon meat, cheese cubes, lollipops, celery sticks and a cupcake. He was really upset because everyone ripped the piss out of him, saying his mum makes his lunch. I feel for the child who turned up with big doorstop of a bloody sandwich, I would imagine. What else have we got? Nigel Williams says he's actually out on a JCB backhoe loader today. Is it saving your time, Nigel? I bet it is. It's a nice place to be, a JCB backhoe, have to say. Right, okay, we are talking sustainability or the sustainability benefits of remanufactured parts in the mining industry with the mighty Caterpillar.
One of the key challenges for mining is improving the public perception. It's an essential industry. It's about our futures, not just us as the mining industry.
Sustainability, it is a growing mantra within the business. It's huge across the world. It's such an important part of, and should be part of, every business.
Caterpillar equipment is designed to be reused throughout its life cycle. We can rebuild large mining trucks 3, sometimes 4 times in their life cycle. And rebuilds obviously offer a huge amount of opportunity to reuse iron, recycle, and minimise the waste that is created through the manufacturing process.
Repair options and rebuilds are very important to our customers in that it helps them drive a lower cost of ownership of the equipment they operate on site, but also minimises the waste.
Quite a lot of our rebuilds are majority reman components. When using Cat reman parts, the ability to actually send the components back reduces a lot of wastage that we would have had normally.
It saves us having to buy new every time. It also saves us from just having to scrap the old components.
It's important to us that we're doing the right thing in the eyes of the community, and if we can impact or limit the impact to our neighbours, all the better.
I'm sure she's not, but the young lady in that video, Elise Moore, looked about 12. I'm sure she's not, but very, very young looking. Nigel Williams says, we do still eat rabbit, but the thing is here in the UK, they are now seen as cute, fluffy pets. Same as horses. I loved horse meat when I lived in Belgium. Yeah, funnily enough, Belgium and France and Spain, I've eaten horse meat in all three. I've got to be honest, the first time was kind of slid by me and I didn't realise what I was actually eating. I just thought it was beef and it was fine. But even when I was told it was horse, not a problem at all. My one regret of my last trip to Verona, I am going back next year, so I'm going to put that right. There was a pasta dish that was served with donkey sauce, made with actual donkey. I'm all about that. I'll have a bit of that. Remember an old school friend of mine? We used to swap sandwiches because he was Italian and didn't particularly like Italian food, which I thought made him a lunatic. So he used to steal my cheese and pickle sandwiches, and I used to eat his salami. And he had one that was really, really strong once, and I said, "This is marvelous. What is this?" And he said, "Oh, that's made of mule." Yeah. Dan Carl says, why don't they do that here? It would save some money. Well, they do. I think the Reman program does tend to be more popular on the bigger end of things, but Garvin, well done. Donkey sauce, bet that had some kick in it. Yeah, I bet it did. I'm looking forward to trying it, I have to say. If I had the money, I'd buy a machine at auction, give it a full makeover, and bet still cheaper than new. I bet it probably is. And bearing in mind, a lot of this is done through Caterpillar dealers, so the parts that you're using are every bit as good as anything. So yeah, we're going to take a bit of a political turn in just a second. And unfortunately, the big orange fella in the White House is on the receiving end both occasions. I'll tell you more in just a second. Although it's likely to be obscured by the war of words between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, Donald Trump is also in the midst of a war with John Deere. These people here. He's imposing tariffs on them, threatened them with even bigger tariffs and so on down the line. Now, there is a video I'm about to play you. If you watch it closely, you will note that this is not purely limited to John Deere. CNH or Case, they've also suffered from it. Now, a lot of this is related to the agricultural industry, but both Case, CNH, and obviously John Deere both make construction equipment as well. There is talk of loaders in there, so this is not purely an agricultural thing. As I say, this is the first of two swipes at Mr. Trump. This one is equipment related. The second one, which is my morning monologue, is human related. But let's do this one first. This is 8 minutes long, so sit back and try to figure out why John Deere are quite as pissed off as they are.
They said it could not happen here, not to this company, not to this brand, not to the green and yellow machine that has stood for over 185 years as a symbol of American strength. But on May 30th, 2025, John Deere began doing what no one wanted to believe was possible: shutting down production, plants, jobs in the heart of the United States. The same company that helped build the American frontier. The same company that helped feed the world. The same company that weathered every storm, recessions, wars, droughts, now pulling back from the country it helped define. The layoffs have already begun, 600 jobs gone, plants in Iowa, Illinois, and more on the line. And the response from the White House? A threat, a tariff, a showdown. It started quietly. A disappointing earnings report, a note to investors, a press release no one outside the industry expected would shake the foundations of American manufacturing. Deere's sales were down 18% in the second quarter. Forecasts for the rest of the year were worse. Farmers were not buying. Dealerships were reporting cancelled orders. Inventory was growing, and the people who made the machines, who assembled the iron, torqued the bolts, calibrated the GPS systems, were told to clock out indefinitely. That same week, John Deere confirmed plans to move its small loader production to a facility in Mexico. The news landed like a hammer, and within 24 hours, President Donald Trump delivered the reply. Any John Deere equipment manufactured in Mexico and shipped back to the United States would be hit with a 200% import tariff.
First at 11, Deere & Company is responding to former President Donald Trump's threat to put a 200% tariff on products the company tries to sell into the U.S.
No negotiation, no appeal, just a line drawn in red ink. But behind the political theater is a deeper, more dangerous truth. Because this is not just about one machine line. This is about an economy on the edge, a farm belt under siege, and a global supply chain breaking under pressure. Across the Midwest, the signs are everywhere. In Ottumwa, Iowa, welders report waiting for calls that never come. In East Moline, Illinois, line supervisors are quietly prepping for deeper furloughs. In Kansas, managers at major dealerships say sales of new equipment have dropped by more than 40% in just 3 months. And what is taking their place? Used machines. 5, 10, even 15 years old, now the hottest commodity on the lot. Farmers are choosing them over brand new tractors, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. Interest rates are high, crop prices are low, tariffs have made new machines more expensive than ever, and the trade war, it is closing markets, raising costs, and killing confidence. This is not just an economic storm, it is a psychological one. In town after town, people are talking about it in hushed tones, around diner tables, in church basements, in union halls. They are wondering, if John Deere is pulling back, what does that mean for the rest of us? They are remembering 2008, 2020, and for some, they are remembering 2018, the last time Trump's trade war cost American farmers over $27 billion in lost exports. Back then, it was China. Now, it is everyone. Mexico, Canada, Brazil, India. Tariffs are flying in every direction, and for the farmers trying to survive, the future is not just uncertain, it is shrinking. Crop prices have flattened. Fuel and fertilizer are more expensive. Equipment costs are surging, and for the first time in years, even repair parts are backlogged. Some farmers say they are waiting 5 to 6 weeks for replacement hydraulic hoses. A delay that, during planting season, is devastating. And John Deere knows it. The company has not abandoned the United States. In fact, it has committed to a $20 billion investment in its U.S. operations over the next decade.
Gentlemen, and I'm thrilled to announce today that DMAC will be investing at least $20 billion over a very short period of time into the United States, and they may go double or even somewhat more than double that amount of money.
New training centers, upgraded factories, smart technology, but even with that, they cannot escape the short-term math. They estimate that tariffs alone will add over $500 million in extra costs this year. And that is before inflation, before labor adjustments, before supply chain rerouting. So they are doing what many manufacturers are quietly doing now, cutting where demand is softest, moving where margins are thinnest, retooling where they can. And the public? They are watching it happen in real time. In Wisconsin, Case IH laid off 200 workers earlier this month. CNH has paused tractor shipments entirely. Dealers across the country are reporting historic hesitation. Farmers who once traded in machines every 4 years are now holding on for 7, even 10. And in Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri, parts shortages are causing delays that never used to happen. One farmer near Des Moines said, "I have a 35-year-old machine still running better than some of the new ones. I am not trading it in because I cannot risk waiting for parts." And the politics of it? They are explosive. Donald Trump is not backing down. At a campaign stop in Ohio, he was asked directly whether his tariffs were hurting American manufacturers. His answer: "If companies are moving jobs to Mexico, they deserve to be taxed into oblivion. We are building America back, and we are not going to let anyone, not even Deere, outsource on our watch." The crowd erupted, but inside the factories, the applause is quieter, because the workers know what it really means. It means parts held up at the border. It means longer shifts for fewer machines. It means pressure from both ends, from management trying to cut costs and from politicians trying to score points. And for some workers, the hardest part is the feeling of betrayal. Not from the company, from the system. A system that once said, "Buy American," and meant it. A system that once said, "Support manufacturing," and followed through. A system that now seems more interested in headlines than solutions. Because even as Trump threatens Deere with tariffs, his own policies have made it harder for the company to stay competitive. He cut electric vehicle subsidies, even for ag equipment. He escalated steel and aluminum duties. He sparked retaliatory measures from countries that used to buy US grain. Countries that are now buying from Brazil, Australia, and Canada. And all of that pressure, it comes right back to companies like Deere, and to the people who build the machines, and to the people who use them, because this is a chain. Farmers, dealers, manufacturers, suppliers, freight companies, towns. And when one link snaps, the whole thing trembles. Already, there are signs that the situation is accelerating. In Minnesota, 3 dealers cancelled their summer demo days, usually the biggest sales events of the year. In Nebraska, a co-op announced it would no longer offer equipment financing. In Indiana, a local bank said farm credit defaults are rising. And in Illinois, 200 workers at the Harvester Works plant got their layoff notices yesterday.
New this afternoon on The Current at 4:30, Deere & Company has informed workers at John Deere Harvester Works in East Moline that about 225 workers will be placed on indefinite layoff.
Quietly, by email. And still, the message from Washington is simple: stay or pay. But for many companies, the choice is no longer theirs. Margins are tight, supply chains are fragile, and while the politics demand loyalty, the economics demand flexibility. And for Deere, caught between policy and production, the only path forward may be the one no one wanted to take. They are not fleeing America, but they are adjusting to survive. And in this storm, survival is no small thing. So watch this space, because what happens to Deere now is what will happen to the rest of the industry next. And what happens to the industry, that will decide what happens to the heartland. Stay sharp, stay informed, because the machines may be quiet, but the warning they carry could not be louder.
So, lots of things to discuss that. I'm going to go over to the chat very quickly on this one. Nigel Williams says, John Deere can screw off just like everyone else. They're going where it's cheaper to manufacture at the expense of local economies in the country they want to sell. It's all short-term gains while the US local economies suffer slowly. You can only be a consumer nation until the money runs out and the quality of life is satisfactory. All good points, but let's forget the reason that John Deere are effectively backed into a corner and they are having to ship some of their production overseas is because of Trump's tariffs, which has made people source their grain from elsewhere. His tariffs on steel and aluminium also being sourced elsewhere. It's had a knock-on effect. And one of the things that I was thinking about that while I was watching that, obviously that's a very American thing, but imagine that here. Imagine if Keir Starmer made some decision that forced JCB to relocate at least some of its manufacturing to France. France is the equivalent of Mexico because it's next door. Imagine the impact that would have on the plant hirers that rely upon JCB equipment right now if they were suddenly paying a tariff to bring JCB machines in from France. Imagine how, and also imagine how, the long-term effect of that. If you were a plant hirer and you refused to pay the tariffs on imported JCB machines, you'd have to look elsewhere. So all of a sudden, those market leaderships where JCB have their stronghold, backhoe loaders, telescopic handlers, you could all of a sudden see those coming from somewhere else. Have such a major impact. I do want to go back here. Steve Williamson has joined us belatedly, but welcome as ever. But also Nigel Williams, going back to the certified rebuilds. There's a very good point in here, actually. Cat certified rebuilds have been going on for decades now, but the problem we're running into is that the bureaucrats with shiny PPE that only see the site once or twice a year make the rules that dictate a 3 to 5 year age limit on plant and machinery, with emissions being legislated by edict. Now, they're barely running at that age, sub 5,000 hours. If they're plant hire fleets, they look like they've been bought at auction from Baghdad plant hire, though. Yeah, I mean, 5,000 hours on a modern machine is nothing at all. Nothing whatsoever. Really isn't. Anyway, people, that's the first political part. The next bit gets even spicier. I do need to remind you, there are no shows next week. I'm off to Italy on Sunday, and I'm not back until the following Saturday. So I'm there for 6 days, I think. Have a look on Instagram. I'll be updating as I can. I'll drop a few bits and pieces in the WhatsApp group as well if I can. But there'll be no shows next week. The good thing is I'll come back with lots and lots of stuff, because I am going to Lorini and to the Caterpillar dealer there. I'm going to Mantovani Benny. I'm going to Trevi Benny. I'm going to the Lamborghini factory and all manner of stuff. So I'll be bringing all of that back when I get back. So don't forget, no shows next week. So I am going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my equally political morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very soon. Monday week would be good, but if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return forthwith immediately after this. There are several ways, surefire ways, to divide an audience or a readership. You might mention religion, or worse still, express religious beliefs that run counter to those of others. I'm not religious, so I've got no faith at all in actual fact, so I'm okay on that one. Another way to send an audience scurrying is to highlight your allegiance to a specific sports team. Admittedly, I do that on occasion, but my team is so bad that my supporting of them really causes offence. I actually get more pity. But the one subject guaranteed to truly raise hackles is any suggestion of political bias. Now, today's topic does have a political element. In fact, it's a topic that exists purely because of politics. But the story itself is not about politics. So, to make that very, very clear, I'm going to get the political part out of the way right up front so we can get into the story. I personally believe that Donald Trump is an abomination. He's not just a terrible president, he's an even worse human being. He's a crook, a grifter, and a known sexual predator. He lies with impunity and is a stain on a great country, that should be. He is an orange... Let me do this again because I want to make it clear. He is an orange shit gibbon. For the record, he's also bald. That chicken on his head is fooling no one. Right, now we've got that out of the way, the story. Back in 2016, I wrote a book called A Sight for Sore Eyes in the immediate aftermath of the Didcot A power station collapse. I gave the profits of that book to 3 of the 4 bereaved families impacted by that tragedy. The 4th family politely declined to be part of it. I sold more books overseas than I sold here, including many to people that were barely able to read English. They didn't buy the book to read it. They bought it as a demonstration of unity. When I was threatened in my own home over something I'd written, I received dozens of phone calls, emails and text messages. The majority of those came from outside the UK. I can find myself at a conference or an exhibition in Italy, Germany, Spain, Sweden. Even though I don't speak the local language, I get by because, like my hosts, I speak the universal language of demolition and construction. Now, there's a reason for all these things. Construction and, by association, demolition is a global brotherhood. And sorry, ladies, I didn't name it. Within that brotherhood, we all speak the same language, regardless of where we come from. And there's an unwritten understanding that if you attack one man or one woman in this industry, you attack us all. Which goes some way to explaining why what is happening in the US right now cuts so deep and feels so personal, even though it's happening thousands of miles away. I'm talking, of course, about the raids on US construction sites by officers from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE as it's become known. These raids are happening across the nation in the US, but here's just a few very, very quick examples. Half of the 200 people who were working on the construction of a student residence hall near Florida State University last Thursday didn't return home. They were arrested in an operation involving ICE authorities. Just a few days later, 31 workers were arrested at 2 construction sites in Texas, and then another 33 suffered the same fate in Wildwood in Florida. In the US construction sector, it's estimated that 1 in 4 workers are immigrants. According to the National Association of Home Builders, around 31% are Latino. A large number of those arrested in Florida hailed from Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, and El Salvador. It's further estimated that around half of all those foreign-born construction workers lack legal status. And this is just one of the many areas with which I have an issue. Those that are less keen on immigration, or people with a skin tone that doesn't precisely match their own, will tell you that these bloody foreigners come over here and sponge off our system. Let me tell you something. There are much easier and safer ways to cheat the system and abuse the hospitality of the host nation than working in demolition or construction. If you're working a 12-hour shift in the blazing Florida or Texas sunshine, you're not a sponger or a parasite. You're a fucking hero. But even setting aside the tax contribution made to the American Treasury by these hard-working immigrants, there's another issue here. The US, like the UK, is already suffering from a labour and skill shortage. If America wanted a clue on how the loss of a migrant workforce might impact upon their own construction industry, they only needed to look at the UK in the immediate aftermath of the Brexit vote. Tens of thousands of Bulgarians, Hungarians, Romanians, Poles, Russians and Ukrainians returned home, significantly undermining UK construction productivity. As a direct result, the UK government was forced to add several construction roles to the shortage occupation list to attract bricklayers, masons, carpenters and roofers back to UK shores to plug the hole left by the post-Brexit exodus. A proper tickle going on here. Yet that is only part of a wider short-sightedness on the part of the US government. Research from the Urban Institute estimates that more than 42% of construction workers are engaged in residential construction. Immigrant labour plays a significant role in states where the sector is already under severe pressure due to supply falling short of demand, particularly in California, Texas, Nevada, New York, Florida, Maryland, and New Jersey. In other words, in its determination to weed out undocumented migrant workers, the US government is simultaneously slowing the construction of much-needed housing for American citizens. Now, not only does all this feel deeply un-American, it also runs counter to history. Here in the UK, large parts of our canal, railway and motorway networks were built by migrant labour from Ireland, the original navvies. Those migrant workers are the reason the UK demolition and construction industry still has a lot of highly successful and highly respected Irish firms, and the sector is all the better for it. In the post-World War II era, West Germany initiated the guest worker program to address labour shortages. Migrant workers from countries like Turkey, Italy and Greece were recruited in industries including construction. Those workers significantly contributed to rebuilding and expanding Germany's infrastructure after the war. Most notably of all, the US Transcontinental Railroad, which was completed in 1869, stands as a testament to the vital role of migrant labour in national development. Chinese immigrants constituted approximately 80 to 90% of the Central Pacific Railroad workforce. Their efforts were instrumental in connecting the American coasts, facilitating commerce and settlement, and making America what it is today. Yet none of that, the skills gap, the housing shortage, or the historical precedent, are the reason for my sadness, frustration, and anger right now. That reason is far simpler, far more human. These aren't migrants or immigrants. These aren't foreigners to be feared or to be hostile towards. They're not spics or wetbacks. These are demolition and construction workers slogging their guts out and breaking their backs to support their families while simultaneously contributing to the development and improvement of a country that is not even their own. Regardless of their colour, the language they speak, the God they worship, or their country of origin, they are part of the global construction brotherhood. And I stand with them. There you are. That's my final word for 8 days or thereabouts. Sorry, something's just gone very, very strange on my screen. There we are, back with that. The chat. Let's go over to the chat, shall we? Let's have a look. John Deere says, I'll be away next week too. Getting excited now, somewhere near new and near the top of the world. I know exactly where you're going, and you're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. I will tell you, Steve, I'm not going there, but as of yesterday, I am meeting up with those people. I'm going to Germany with those people in July. I'll keep you posted. Chris Ford says, on your tours, can you fill your pockets for some equipment for me? I'm going to need some pretty big pockets to bring back anything. I mean, I might bring back a hat or two, but equipment, I'm not so sure. Steve says, that's Mark now banned from entering the States. No more ConExpo. Trump will be watching. Do you know, listen, I know you've done laughy faces. I am genuinely concerned about that. I am genuinely concerned about that. I make no secret of my distrust and dislike of Donald Trump. If I arrive in America and if they decide to take a look at my social media, they will see it. I could get turned around. I could be carted off to El Salvador. That is the world we live in today, or that is the America people are living in today. Nigel Williams says, we only have to look at Birmingham and the loss of the automotive industry there. Coventry, Dagenham, and now Luton, all once hubs of automotive manufacturing, and now a husk of the film themselves, with low-skilled and low-paying jobs, and certainly not as prosperous as they once were in the regions. No, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Gary Muirhead, hopefully safely back in the UK. Morning, everyone, and happy Friday. He says, have a safe journey, my friend. Hope you have a fantastic time with our Italian cousins. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm going to meet up with people. I mean, there's several people that I haven't seen since the last study tour that the EDA did back in 2019. I actually saw them last in Japan. There are people there that literally the last time I saw them was at Tokyo Airport, and I'll be seeing them again in just a day or two's time. There's some familiar faces there. Stefano Panseri is going to be there because we're going to Despe. I'm going to finally get to meet face-to-face with Marco Lorini, Christian over at Trevi Benny, and loads of other people as well. So really looking forward to that. I finally get to meet Yvonne Waterman face-to-face as well, which I'm looking forward to enormously. Jim Turner says, whilst every country pays folks to do nothing and house will mean it will have a labour shortage whilst not being short of people. That's my issue. It's a fair comment. But immigration in general needs to be done at a strictly controlled rate. If we're going to get integration, mass immigration leads to natural segregation. It certainly can. Yeah, it certainly can. But the point that I was making, and this is that was why I highlighted it. One of the things that I really... you all know I'm left-leaning, liberal, and a bit of a poncy fucker. I know all that. The bit that I can't get out of my head, if you come to here and put yourself on the dole, just claim benefits and don't do anything, I have an issue. If, however, you come here and you make a genuine contribution, you go out to work and you do your things and everything else, then I don't have an issue. And that is what I would say about the American situation. They're rounding up people from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and places like that. But they're rounding them up on construction sites. Now, they may be undocumented. I take that fully on the chin. But they're rounding them up from construction sites in Florida and Texas. Those guys are working really, really, really hard. And because they're working within construction, they're paying their taxes, but they're also building houses that Americans need. If you take them out, and we saw exactly the same thing here, when you took out those people post-Brexit, we literally had to go back to our European neighbours, cap in hand, please come back, please come back, please forgive us for Brexit, we know not what we do, please come back and help us build our houses. And we're still suffering from that shortfall today. A lot of that is down to planning. A lot of it is down to the inefficiencies within the construction industry and within the planning organisations as well. But the fact that we have got a skill shortage of the magnitude that we have, we shot ourselves in the foot. And I do believe the Americans are doing precisely the same. Nigel says, the immigration subject is a thorny one. You're absolutely right. Sadly, the rot set in generations ago, and it's the fault of our so-called leaders who couldn't get a shag in a brothel. They hammed up credentialism and convinced millions they needed degrees and promoted anything but the blue-collar trades that we need far more than office bodies shuffling paper around aimlessly, thus making rich pickings for foreign skilled tradesmen, and it's only been exacerbated the native decline in tradesmen. Yes. Yes. The very fact that, listen, we've spoken about this so many times, I'm bored with listening to myself saying it. You know, the very fact that you've now got, you know, retail jobs requiring a degree. So as a result of that, you know, there is a knock-on effect of that. If you're at the school and you want to go out of school into work, well, your route now is considered to be there is only one. You leave school and you go to college, you go from college to university, then you go into the workplace. Whatever happened to that leaving school, and we talked about this yesterday, you know, go and do a bit, you know, push a broom around a construction site, go and work on a farm, get the hang of machines, go and earn your keep, use a spanner. We don't do that anymore. So, you know, all those people that are pissing and moaning about the fact that, you know, we've got Poles building our houses, whose fault is that? It's not the Poles. The Poles didn't do anything wrong. They didn't. They're not like red squirrels. Or what were the other things? Crayfish. American crayfish apparently eat native crayfish, but they're not red squirrels. They haven't, or grey squirrels rather. They haven't invaded. They didn't just come in and take over. We opened the bloody door to them. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, very well said, Mark. And yes, when they come and do work, I'm all for it. Yeah. And remember to say hi to Marco from me. I will indeed, Gary. Not a problem at all. If you ignore the hype and clips of Enoch Powell, actually look into what he thought and predicted about mass immigration, he was spot on. It's the whole rivers of blood thing that I struggle with personally. Now let's have a look. I did see a message from Steve. Where did he go? He said something about a Trevi Benny hat, I think. Where did you go? I'm sure somebody said something about a Trevi Benny hat. There we are. Steve Williamson. Trevi Benny. I'd love one of their caps, Mark. The caps are stunning. I'll have a word. I know the marketing guy there. Known him for donkey's years, actually. I will have a quiet word, see what I can do. Dan says, I've seen so many good workers of foreign nationality. The people I see complaining are the lazy people. Yeah, and the lazy people are not generally your migrants. I say the same about criminality. You know, if you come here and you are going to work in construction, and maybe your point of entry was not strictly legal, you want to keep your nose clean. So, generally you'll be law-abiding, and generally you'll work bloody hard, because the last thing you want is to end up unemployed and having to go and claim benefit and therefore explain where you've come from. It just makes no sense. Let's have a look. Nigel Williams says, I lived in Melton in 2022. Remember the Leicester brawls between Indians and Pakistani men over a poxy cricket match. I've been to a West Ham match against Millwall. It was basically civil war. Same thing. If they are there illegally, how can they be paying tax? Very, very simply. They are undocumented, but, would they have the same system in the States as we have here? I don't know what they call it, but they have a PAYE system in the States. And a lot of these people, I know there is that notion of American construction companies driving by the local diner in a pickup and just taking any Mexican that happens to be hanging about. That's fine for the movies. That's not the real world, I promise you. Degrees are worthless debt anchors around your neck. In a lot of instances, I think you're right. Jim Turner, going back to Enoch Powell, who's to say he was wrong this time yet? I just don't. My own personal belief is, not that my personal belief is necessarily right, but the incendiary language of Rivers of Blood basically pours fuel on the fire, doesn't it? Is that not an incendiary thing to say? And I always come back to this. Whenever I talk about politics, I have a very simplistic view of politics. Ultimately, whether you're Donald Trump or Keir Starmer or whoever, you are a person, and the people that you are governing are people too. And if you whittle it all down to the most basic thing, one person and another person, I've said it before, if somebody knocked on my door, male, female, black, white, brown, yellow, and said, I am being abused in my house next door, come in, me old China, have a cup of tea, we'll ring the authorities and we'll see if we can sort you out. Simple as that. And regardless of whether that's me and my next door neighbour who isn't being abused, but, if I can do that on that level, should we not be doing that on a wider level? And I go back to the American example. They have got a skill shortage every bit as bad as ours, and they've also got a housing shortage every bit as bad as ours. And the people most of the people that are building the houses that they so desperately need for, those apple pie loving white Americans are being built by Mexicans. You take the Mexicans out, you don't have houses. Steve, you've been there. If Donald Trump got his way and he sent his ICE officers or ICE agents into Las Vegas and basically said, okay, any Mexicans, get on this bus, you're going back to Mexico City. I couldn't think of any word. Tijuana, you're going back to Tijuana. Las Vegas would shut down that day. There'd be nobody to fix the food. There'd be no waiters and waitresses. There'd be nobody making your beds in your hotels. There'd be no taxi drivers. Las Vegas would stop. If you take those Mexicans out, it would stop. And that's not peculiar. Think back to where we were in the late 50s, early 60s, where we couldn't get enough English people, white English people, to drive our buses. So what did we do? We basically brought people in from the West Indies. We had a long tradition of West Indian bus drivers. If you had taken those out, nobody's got a bus. Nobody can drive a bus. You can't get to work. There's the knock-on effect. And whether that is the right solution, regardless of how that came to be, that's the facts. That is the absolute facts. Gary says, maybe come back with some goodies. You haven't had a prize giveaway for a very long time. Well, I think Chris Ford should be opening a package any day now, actually. But no, I haven't. You're absolutely right. I will do my best. I know the one that we did in Japan, there was a few bits and pieces kicking around, and I'll certainly pick up anything that is going. But yes, I will do my level best on that. And I've got a thing in mind. I'm trying to make the absolute most of this trip to Italy. I've got an opportunity to interview a few people, so I'm going to be doing that. I'm also looking around some factories and some dealerships and stuff like that, so I'll be filming that. In an ideal world, what I would like to do is to come back with, a Trevi Benny film, which I will play on the show. I'll come back with a Mantoveni Benny film, and I'll play that on the show and stuff. But I'm also planning to vlog the entire trip. And in an ideal world, what I would like to do is to produce a film, I don't know, half an hour long, that literally takes you from, I'm not going to start at Gatwick Airport because that's as naff as anything, but literally from the moment I land in Milan through to the point that I leave Venice, all points in between. So take you on the coach, see the food, see the coach journey, see the people that I meet, see the places that I go and everything else, and do that as a a breakfast show after dark. Do it one evening, a week or two after I get back, when I've had a chance to piece it all together. And at that point, if I've come back with goodies, and I sincerely hope that I have, I will basically give away the goodies. That's the point. Nigel Williams says, here's an honest opinion. Those are the only types that we like, Nigel. 18 plus years of age is too late to start apprentices. I personally think teenagers at the age of 14 to 15 should be apprentices under journeyman, and it bores my piss that apprentices are just cheap labour until they qualify, then pushed out the gap when they are worth real wages. You're absolutely 100% correct. You are 100% correct. And I also think, you know, you can spot a 14, 15-year-old. I know this is something that Jim goes on about a lot. You know, if you've got somebody, you know, maybe they're not particularly academically brilliant, but they can wield a spanner, or they can drive a paintbrush, or they know their way around plumbing, let them, encourage them, because we do need those. You know, I think we've probably got enough YouTubers and TikTokers now. Not that that will stop the tide, but we've got enough of those. What we need is people to fix our houses, build our houses, fix our plumbing, fix our cars. Really? If someone isn't legally in a country, where's the paper trail for working out their tax contributions? Not my pay grade, Jim, I'm afraid. Not my pay grade at all. Juan Viaggio, got to go. Is it a hat? See you a week on Monday. It's more than it. There isn't a hat. No, there's other stuff in your box of goodies. Look out for it. Jim Turner says, but that is where immigration works when we don't have enough people. But right now we have more people than jobs. We don't need any more people here. You think? We have a government that is pledged to build 1.5 million new homes in 5 years. We're already running short of that. And one of the key reasons that we're running short on that, planning is an issue, materials is an issue. But the biggest reason that we will miss that target of 1.5 million new homes in 5 years, we haven't got enough people to build them. Now, we might have enough people here in the UK, but are you seeing much? You know, are you seeing a queue? Are you seeing a queue at your local construction site of young white men and women saying, I want a piece of this? Because I'm not. Dan says, I've had a few parcels. You have indeed. Are you going to get Lorini on an evening show? It's going to be a bit of a fact-finding mission. I've spoken to Marco via text and via LinkedIn and stuff like that. I don't know how good his English is. I mean, I'm sure his English is way, way better than my Italian, but I am planning to interview him while I'm there about the new Setanta machine that he's developed. And I will be playing that on an evening show and possibly a morning show as well. So keep an eye out for that. Gary says, I know, Dan, wait till Mark makes it guess the bucket on the mystery machine. Maybe I need to do that. I know somebody, I think it may have been Steve, actually suggested doing a mystery machine from the cab. The problem is, they're still identifiable. Steve says, I disagree. We have more work than people. That's my take. It might be the wrong type of work or the wrong type of people. You know, we have spare people. We have spare people. What we don't have is spare people that are willing to pick up a shovel or whatever. Jim says, why do we need more homes? Because we keep importing more people and they all have to be housed. It's just a Ponzi scheme. But it's not, is it? You know, I mean, I'm contributing to this. You know, I am father to 4 children. 2 of my 4 children left one home and now have homes of their own. I've got 2 more that will leave one home. So I have contributed a demand. I don't remember thinking this when I was making sweet love to my missus, but I have contributed a demand for 4 homes. Who's building those? Dan says, I do hope I get an Italian cap. I will do my very, very best. Nigel Williams says, whoa, hold your horses there. We don't have, same in America, a housing shortage. We have an immigration crisis. Domestic birth rates are below replacement rates and have been for more than a decade. Population growth dictates housing demand and thus house building. The demand is outstripping supply, and that can only be appropriated to the 900,000 plus people per year migrating legally and illegally. Building 50,000 houses a year should be plenty. I think you're way off the mark. Also, bearing in mind that we are forever shifting the goalposts on what is an acceptable place in which to live. You know, you have so many regulations on housing now, on what they're made of, their thermal capabilities and everything else. We used to build houses. You know, the first house that I built was the first house that I bought was built in the 1930s, and it was good to go. It didn't have central heating. It didn't have double glazing. It was quite chilly in the winter, but it was okay. That doesn't fly anymore. And you know, we are worried about the thermal thing because of sustainability and global warming and everything else. We're also worried about the mold and the various other bits and pieces. So we are constantly needing to update the housing stock that we've got already. Plus, as I say, I've you know, as a single person, my wife was somewhat involved, but as a single person, I've added a demand for 4 new homes. And my children, 4 of them, in all likelihood, will procreate at some point as well. My eldest daughter has already got 3 children. So already I am responsible, not for just one house where I am, the 4 that will be required by my children, plus another 3 for my grandchildren. Steve says, if we didn't have all these homes being built, I'd be out of a job. So I'm grateful. Absolutely. I'd have a lot less to talk about, I have to say. We have too many people, good working people, sitting on the dole taking benefits. We should be telling them, if you don't want to work, you won't get your handouts. We've made it too easy for them. That bit I certainly do agree with. I certainly do agree with that. But again, I'll go back to the point that I was making about our Mexican cousins over in the States there. If you are a lazy person and you are sat there collecting your benefits and basically feet up watching your telly and not doing a great deal, and the government changes the rules and says, we're not going to have this anymore, you need to go and find yourself a job. How many of those do you think would end up in things like retail or delivery driving or working in a warehouse or something like that, as opposed to working in construction? If you've got a lazy person, do they really want to work 12 hours a day in the pissing rain, the blazing sunshine, breaking their backs, or will they go the easy option? So even pushing, you know, the dole scroungers into employment doesn't solve the problem within construction. How about a mystery machine by description? Do you know, I actually had a play around with that. I did have a play around with that. It's not an exciting game. I've got to be honest, it's not an exciting game. Dan says, I get regular calls from Indian, Romanian guys looking to get work in construction. What we need to do is get people off PIP by saying you must do at least 30 hours a week before you can claim up to 2 years and actually prove your disability. Steve is in agreement. Jim Turner says, yes, people need training. I wasn't born a plant op. All the other trades weren't born a trade. They become one. So take the money out of the welfare system, then you've got people queuing up to train and get a well-paid job. Will you, though? As I say, if you are a lazy person and you are required, in order to get some sort of benefit or in order to keep the roof over your head or whatever it might be, much like a school leaver. Yeah, there is a perfect example. You know, we talk about this so often on this show. Somebody walks out of the school gates for the final time and they have the entire world to look at, the entire employment world. You know, they could become a scientist or a mathematician, a doctor, a lawyer, a barman, a retail assistant, a shelf stacker, a burger flipper. How many of those are leaving the school gates and saying the job for me is construction and demolition because I want to work really, really hard in danger all the live long day. Hardly any. That's why we've got a skill shortage. So even if you were to change the rules on employment and benefits and everything else, those people that are currently on benefits that are forced back into the workplace get a job, or you don't get benefits, or you lose your house. They're not going to go, okay, well, I've been sat on the sofa for 3 years. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and slog my guts out in construction. No, they're going to take the easy option. They absolutely are. And get these twats and these people are having babies just to claim a new house and more money. If your missus is pregnant, the man must do a minimum 30 hours a week to be able to claim. I've got a real issue with that one. And that shouldn't be like a legal requirement. I do remember this. I know we've got a few parents in our midst here. I don't know. I don't remember the day it happened, but I do remember the effect. Growing up in my teens and my 20s, I was a very, very self-centered, self-absorbed, selfish kind of guy. The only person that really mattered was me. My girlfriend, who became my wife a bit, but by and large, bit of a selfish twat. I make no bones about it. I don't think I'm unique in that. My oldest daughter, Georgia, was born, and it was like somebody flicked a switch, and it was like, that's it. That's right there. You now have a priority. I don't care how selfish you are. You need to put that to one side, because that child that you've just brought into the world needs feeding and clothing and caring for. I don't understand how that doesn't happen to other people. I thought that was a bit like, women being maternal. I thought that when you had a child, something went off in your head that said, that's it, your responsibility. Get off your ass and go and look after that child. Put food on his or her table. Clothe them as best you can. I don't understand why that doesn't happen. Gary says, we used to have big companies like Wimpy who had all the trades in-house, like joiners, brickies, ground workers. Do we need to go back to those days? I wish we would. I do wish we would. Imagine how much better your workforce would be if we've created a system whereby it's become the thing where you work for a company, a job ends, and either they lay you off or somebody gives you wind of another £5 a week down the road, so you have it on your toes. Imagine how much better, how much more loyal, how much more competent the workforce would be if you joined a company, let's say Wimpy as an example, because they were one of those. You join them at 16 or 17. Yeah, your first 6 months is pushing a broom around the yard, and then you move up a bit, and then you move up a bit more, and you move up a bit more, to the point where you end up as you're on site, you're a regional manager, a site supervisor, or what it might be. But then when the time comes for you to have children, in all likelihood, those children would follow you into it, because that's the way those companies were set up. We still have it today. You look at companies like Erith would be a good example in the demolition field, started by Tom Darcy. His 3 sons came into it, and there are now several of their children running it now. We've lost that, and we've lost that because, you do a bit and then you go somewhere else, and you do a bit and you go somewhere else. And all of that is because we have pushed people off the books. And I have personal problems with the way in which agency staff are treated. I think they're treated very, very poorly. But imagine, but also imagine the double-edged sword of that. If you've been working for the same company for 10, 15, 20 years, imagine the loyalty you would feel to them. They've always looked after you. You will always look after them. Surely that's a better way than picking up staff and putting them down. Because if you've trained them and you've molded them in your own way, you've got exactly what you want. If you're picking up agency staff, you're getting whatever happens to be available at that time. So, Gary, yes, I agree. They did this in Ireland 30 years ago. You must go to work with council, cutting hedges, clean streets. Don't have a problem with that. We do actually have a few, I would describe them as chain gangs around where I live, doing sort of road maintenance, well, not road maintenance, like grass verges and stuff like that. And I don't know where they come from. I don't know whether I've never got the impression they are out of jail. But it all seems a bit loosey-goosey for that. I don't know where they're coming from, but yeah, they do. I've heard people saying that if they came off benefits and went to work, they couldn't find a job that pays the same. That doesn't help. No, that doesn't help. Yes, or they'll have a life of nothing. If you have no, it's very hard to do anything. Steve Williamson says, at the end of the day, a good paid job won't bloody fall on your lap. You've got to earn it and work hard to get it. It's not bloody rocket science. If you want a job, you really want 90% of the time, if you put in the hard work, you'll get it. You will live a good family life, go to nice places, have nice things. Simple, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously there are people that they don't do that math. You know, they're quite happy to sit on their back. And listen, I going back to what I was saying earlier about when you look at politics, it is ultimately people. And you do have some people that are driven and determined and passionate. And you do have some people that basically are a bit lazy. That's not. It's unfortunate that those that are not lazy are expected to support those that are. But, you know, I'm just thinking about my own domestic situation here. As 4 people, we tend to have 4 different meals of an evening because, you know, we all come and go at different times or whatever. And, you know, it's not unusual for me to end up filling up the dishwasher and emptying it afterwards because neither of my children have bothered to do it. The fact that I'm mentioning it probably suggests that it rankles a bit. It doesn't really, because I'm going out there anyway. So doing one extra bit, not a big deal. But if they were doing it on a continual basis, probably would rankle a whole lot more. Look at the situations in Birmingham. Rubbish. If people got out and went to landfill, they wouldn't have any problems. They're too lazy. There's more to the Birmingham situation than that, though, isn't there? I mean, basically, the council is broke. Biggest council in the whole of Europe, and it is bankrupt. Our friend Wolfie, we haven't seen him for a while. Have the clock shifted, or are we running late? We are running quite late. Wolfie, good morning to you. Very early morning where he is. He's over in the States. Nigel Williams says, Mark, it took me 3 kids and a divorce before my parental instincts kicked in with my youngest daughter. When she was born, the only thing that mattered to me was my family. Now it's just me in an empty house, and she only comes once a fortnight, which I feel very sad for you. And I've seen the photographs of you and your daughter, Nigel. You can tell. I mean, shit, that's her in your photograph there. I can see that. I can tell your parental, your paternal instincts have most definitely kicked in. There is no question. As I say, listen, everyone's different, but I do remember just waking up one day. There's a kind of a follow-on to that as well. I remember not consciously thinking she is now my focus. My daughter is now my focus. You know, she has to be fed and clothed and looked after and everything else. But I also became very, very conscious of the state of the world. Like, I don't want my daughter to grow up under the threat of nuclear war and stuff like that. What the fuck I was going to do about it, I'm not entirely sure. But you do. I think when that paternal or maternal instinct kicks in, you become very, very conscious of the dangers all around. And I don't just mean walking through squiffy bits of London or taking them to dodgy bits of Europe. I mean, just generally, day to day, you know, you're watching the news. Is that likely to come here? I mean, I genuinely, I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been a parent during the height of COVID. I mean, I'd have been shitting my pants, I would have thought, not just for myself, but for my children as well. And by the time COVID hit here, they were all big enough and ugly enough to take care of themselves. Jim Turner says the human race does what it can get away with, so paying people to do nothing breeds laziness. Wouldn't argue with that. But the human race can kind of be lazy on its own, doesn't always need encouragement. We're pretty good at doing that. And listen, you are looking at a guy that basically sits on his arse for 12 hours a day in exactly the same spot, 5 and 6 days a week. You know, I'm not exactly mining coal. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, people, that will do us. That's an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, I do love these chats. And do you know what I think is really refreshing? Is the fact that we can all have our own opinions and they're all valid. I know that sounds awfully hippy dippy, but I know what I believe. I also know that what I believe is not necessarily right. I know what Nigel believes, what Dan believes, what Jim believes, Gary, Steve. I agree with some. I don't agree with all. And yet, we can all get along. Is that not a better way to live your life? Can't we all just get along? Yeah. Anyway, people, I'm going to go and brush up on my Italian. I'm going to learn how to say something more than buongiorno. Gary says, very true, Nigel, well said. I think back to all the things that I was doing for my family, working away every hour under the sun. Now I realise how much I've lost out on. I did the same. And it's, I'm going to, listen, ladies, any ladies that are watching this, I apologise for what I'm about to say, but I do genuinely believe this. One of the things that kicked in, one of the genes in my body that kicked in a bit when my daughter was born, but kicked in even harder when my twins were born, was I have to do everything for them. So if somebody said, you're going to miss their sports day, but there's a couple of £1,000 in it for you, I'd take the couple of £1,000. Given my time over, I'd probably take the other choice. But at the time, there was something in my weird masculine brain that basically said, the only thing you're good for here is earning money for your wife and your children. So go and do that. I wish I'd had the good sense to actually take a step back, as Gary has rightly said there, take a step back and go, they only do so many sports days. Maybe I should do one of those or a couple of those, and maybe I would just let that £1,000 slide or whatever it might be. But I think, certainly in my case, I'm sure not everyone's the same, but in my case, I was genetically predisposed to, I'll take the money and I'll worry about the emotional distress afterwards. Just the way I went. Dan says, all this online bollocks doesn't help youngsters thinking they influence people. Yeah, that's a sore point on me, that one. Gary Muirhead says, have a safe and relaxing weekend, everyone. I don't think I'll be doing much relaxing. I'll be doing a lot of travelling, but I'm quite pleased about it. Steve says, the reason I left offshore was just because I was missing out so much at home. I did it for nearly 5 years and got to see amazing things. Learned a lot, and being offshore, being involved in drilling was an experience I'll never forget. Yeah, but I mean, you are now responsible for partly responsible for a child, are you not, Steve? Would you want to be doing offshore now? My guess is probably not. I'll probably close the show before you get a chance to answer, because I'm about to call it a day now. Hour and 23 minutes. I think that will probably do us. There will be a recap. As I say, no shows next week, so don't turn up here on Monday looking forlorn, because there's nothing I can do about it. I will be in Milan. I'll be in Milan first thing on Monday, and then I will be in Bergamo. I'm going from Milan to Bergamo. Jim says, now take that statement, Mark, but put yourself on benefits instead, and you wouldn't have had to bother. Bingo. Yeah, listen, not the way I was raised. I've mentioned, I inherited lots of things from my father, some good, some not so good. But the one thing that I did inherit, unquestionably, was work ethic. There is nothing in my genetic makeup that would allow me to have children and not work. It's like saying, well, you've got kids now, stop breathing. Well, no, I can't be doing that. Nigel says, have a safe trip, enjoy the pasta and the pizza. I fully intend to. Chris Ford, when you're young, you need the money. I've always put others before me, but it costs a lot of shilling. Yeah. Gary Muirhead says, unfortunately, I did see Hydromek, but I didn't see Hydromek, but seen plenty on the way to the airport. Yeah, for those of you that aren't aware, Mr. Muirhead was trying to convince his good lady wife to take a spin by the Hedromec factory while they were on holiday, celebrating her birthday. You see, they say the age of romance is dead. Not up in Scotland. Gary Muirhead keeping the age of romance alive. Jim Turner says, but people are now raised like that because governments allow it. Don't just allow it. I think governments sometimes fucking encourage it as well. Anyway, people, that will do. That will definitely do. I've got more charging to do. So go and have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic week. Don't talk about me in my absence unless it's in a positive light. But I'll be back on Monday week. I don't know what Monday week is. 7, 8, 9. The 16th. I'll be back on the 16th of June with tales to tell and possibly giveaways to hand out. So be tuned in for that. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care of yourselves. All the very best.